So we are back again with another episode of Months in Motion today. I'm very, very, very excited for this one. My guest today is James Martin, better known online as Made by James. He has nearly 1 million followers on Instagram and has spent 2 decades building brands, educating designers, and saying things the industry doesn't always want to hear. He's an advisor to Affinity, sits on the design advisory board at Canva, and is a partner at Lincoln Design Co., where he works with brands like Disney, Nike, and Liquid Death. He's also a published author, course creator, and someone writes a few thousand words every Sunday on Substack, whether he feels like it or not. But
Fact.
none of that. None of that is where the story starts. James was kicked out of school at home at 17 and found design. Design gave him a way out and eventually a way forward. And today we're going to get into that journey. Some very strong views on personal branding, what craft actually means in a world where anyone can design and anyone can animate, and why he thinks the real threat to creativity isn't AI, it's the disappearance of the conditions that creativity needs to thrive. James, I am very excited to have you here. Thanks
Golly,
for joining.
that is 100% the best intro. You've been reading my Substack, son. That's what you've been doing. You've been doing your research. Yeah. No, I'm very excited to be here. We first met. Where did we met in London? Was it a
We did.
few? Yeah, that was an Affinity event. I think it was, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yeah, the secret Affinity launch. I was
Yeah,
lucky enough to come
yeah.
down
And
and
we
we shared
become
a
become fast friends who DM each other random stuff ever since on
that's it.
LinkedIn. It's been
Bonding
wonderful.
originally over the silver tooth.
Yeah. Hey, God, mine's gold, son. Do you know what I mean? That was it.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Maybe give me
Winner.
give me give me another few more years in the industry. I'll get them replaced.
Yeah. What you gotta do is you gotta get hit in the face by a golf club, lose your tooth, and then just put some gold in it. That's what I did. That's a different story, which I'm sure
Fucking
we'll
hell.
probably
I let mine
sure
just
we'll
pop on and off. I avoid the golf club.
yeah. I actually don't have a tooth under here. It's actually just all gone because I got hit in the face of a golf club in a very drug-induced golfing accident. But maybe we'll get
Christ.
into that on another time. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that story. I don't have a similar excuse. My dad just doesn't look like a twat.
Yeah, but our dads always tell us we look like a twat. My dad told me I'd never get a job or make any money if I was covered in tattoos. He was wrong.
I got the same from my mum.
Yeah, it's all good. So I'm excited. What are we chatting about? Creativity, personal brand. Where are we starting? Life.
Yeah, yeah. Let's start with life because I would love to know a little bit more. I'm also a bit of a disjointed and weird kind of like path into the creative industry. So I think
Mhm.
that's always a nice thing to talk about and hear people's stories. So kind of jumping off the back of like getting kicked out, it's not the kind of typical origin story for somebody that would end up, on the design board for Canva or working with brands like Disney and Nike. Where did creativity come into all of that? And like, how did you realize it was a way out?
Oh God, good questions. Yeah, I think we'll start at that point where kicked out of home, kicked out of school. That was at the age of 17. I had like a pretty not necessarily tortuous. I think that's the wrong word, but I had a bit of a just long story short, rather than fucking going around the houses here. Like age of 11, sexually abused at school by one of my teachers, and I kind of didn't tell anybody for a good chunk of time, and took that kind of struggle all the way through my teens and through school, and obviously was looking for escape, and that escape happened through drugs, bad relationships, alcohol, and all of these things. So that, I would say, that was the instigator for me getting kicked out. I can look back on it now as like a 42-year-old man with his own son, and fairly more stable in the brain, not much more stable, but a little bit more stable. And I think it's always important to kind of set the context, like rather than just kicked out of school and kicked out of home. I think there's always a reason for the things that happen to us that happen. And I'm a big believer in trying to talk about it so others feel that the power that they can talk about it too, if they ever want to. So school was always a very weird place for me. Anyway, I was never particularly bright, Jimmy. I was always more of that creative sportsman. I was very good at
Yeah.
sport. I wasn't even that good at art or design, like in like exam times at school, where art was an exam. So what the fuck, that's mad, isn't it? So, but like art and design were definitely rooms and classrooms for me that I didn't feel out of place. Dyslexia, ADHD, like math, English, I found it very difficult to read, to write, to add up, like everything, anything. I was always very slow at exams. Like, everybody would be finishing their exams, and I'd be like halfway through going, how has everybody finished? But this was kind of before like you got extensions on stuff and all the rest of it. So I always was kind of made to feel like I was a bit stupid at school. So luckily I was quite sporty. But yeah, so ended up doing way too many drugs. Ended up getting kicked out of school, and then because I was kicked out of school, I was then kicked out of home. And it's very important to also reiterate that at this time, my parents didn't know what I'd gone through. They were just thinking like, this guy is an absolute mess doing drugs. I don't want that in my house. Get out, sort your life out. And to be fair, like it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Like really, because the only reason I'm here today is because I managed to like fight for myself a little bit and figure it out. And I had the space to figure it out while I was out of home, and because I had to. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, basically kicked out of school, kicked out of home at 17. Moved in with my mate, just carried on doing drugs for about 2 years, spanked all my savings, and had like office jobs, bar jobs, all of these things. And back then I was like, I just had no kind of exams. I had like GCSEs, but didn't have any A levels. I was kicked out before all of that, so it was like quite difficult to know where I was going because I didn't really know who I was or what I was doing.
Mm.
I like work here for like 6 months, work here for 2 weeks, work here for 3 months. I was going all over the place, and like I said, it was basically just trying to feed love for trying every single drug under the sun, which was basically what I was trying to do. Getting into some sticky situations. Like the people that I was hanging around with were really good people, but I think like when you get in a group, you end up just doing more and more stupid stuff, especially as like
Yeah.
boys, 18, 19, 20. Do you know what I mean? Like, fucking hell, rule the world, son. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we were trying to do. But yeah, eventually, like after 2 years, I just literally woke up and thought, like, what on earth am I doing with my life? Because you can start to reflect, especially when you're like super low. Do you know what I mean? Coming off a bunch of E's after another night of no sleep, and you're just sitting there going to work a job that you don't really fucking want to go to, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Do you know what I mean? So
Hmm. Hmm.
that was the next. I mean, that kind of happened one too many times, and I just went, right, got to do something about it, because I was either going to end up probably in jail or dead.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just guessing here, but I'm over dramatizing for the sake of a good story, Jimmy. Do you know what I mean? But it could have gone, it
No,
could have
yeah,
gone that way. Like I just don't know. But
yeah.
instead, I decided to go to the local college, and I enrolled in an art foundation, and then basically just kept on going. Art foundation led me on to a PGC where I did a bit of teaching. I then went and taught for a little bit at a school. I then came back to design and did like an HND in graphic design. That managed to get me onto like the second year of a uni course, and then I did that, and then I found a job while I was at uni, while I was also working at a cafe, and then bing bang bosh, started my own. I worked in an agency, then started my own agency because the other agency was closing down, and like just kept on showing up. I was then quite early in, I live in a tiny little village in the like south coast of the UK, and like, then suddenly this social media thing happened, and I was like, oh, maybe this might be quite an interesting way to get more work outside of my village. And then I was quite early on that. Like I started like using it as a marketing kind of place, well over a decade ago now. So I was quite early on seeing it as a tool for like self promotion or marketing my services. Now I'm sitting here talking to you, Jimmy. It's pretty wild, but excited. I wouldn't change any of it.
Mhm.
Probably done slightly less drugs, but maybe that helps
That's
me.
what we all say, right?
Yeah, everybody says that. Yeah, yeah, love that.
Really appreciate the transparency in sharing your story. It's something I'm also a big advocate about. I had a bit of a complex upbringing too. I wouldn't say kind of anything that's harrowing, but I definitely kind of didn't have an easy childhood and was similar. Like felt very lost when I was at university, and similarly, picked up and got into the world of drug addiction for quite a long time, and
Yeah,
struggle with my career and direction. And it's a really tricky place to be, and it's a really fucking hard thing to get yourself out of solo.
yeah,
I think one thing like people like both of us should always be really proud of is actually just like getting yourself out of that shit. Like it's not a fucking easy feat at all. Like it's
It's
a very
really
difficult thing to pick
no,
yourself up.
it's really not. And congratulations to you for doing that. Like you say, it's a very lonely thing, but I think it's like with anything. I mean, there is obviously there's always support, and there's all people out there who can help, but it's not always easy to ask for it. And it's also like there's a big difference between like knowing you probably need to stop and actually wanting to stop. I think that was the thing for me, and you probably found that as well. You potentially got to a point where you were just like, there has to be a better way. Like, I can't keep doing this. I mean, I still have friends who are still bang on it, like at 40
Yeah,
with kids. And I'm like, how do you even function? But they
yeah.
don't want to stop.
Mhm.
They have no need to want to stop. Yeah, I'm just yeah, kudos to you. And I think we connected, and the way we've become close friends quite quickly is probably because we understand how important it is to talk about these things openly. And in a world of social media where everything's a bit of a highlight reel and everything's
Mhm.
great and everybody's just living on an island and posing in front of fucking cars they don't own. Do you know what I mean? It's very easy to get sucked into this fakery. So I always find I connect very quickly to real people, and you are definitely one of those. So yeah, congratulations on getting to where you are. Fucking hero, Jimmy. Do you know what I mean?
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. I mean, it's
I'll
definitely a
just interview
turnaround.
you now, Jimmy. That's what I'll do. Tell me about your life. Tell me how you grew up. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm as interested as you, if I'm honest,
Oh,
so we'll keep
doubt it.
it.
We're all as interesting as each other. That's the beautiful thing about it, isn't it?
Well, I'm really glad we connected over this stuff. I think, yeah, as I said, I knew it was going to be like a cool conversation with loads of like twists and turns. I wasn't expecting to necessarily dive into all that stuff, but I love, yeah, love
We're
that
here.
you're open and
We're in
honest
it now,
about it.
Jimmy. We're in it.
I think as well, and I'm diverting off script here, but I think, it is really important. I think it's important in general to talk about mental health and challenges and journeys, but I think even more so in the creative industry, because I think we're all kind of softies at heart. We're all quite sensitive. And I think there's a lot more people that go through these kind of struggles within our industry than maybe in others. So I think it is really important for us to be kind of open and honest and have discussions about this to make people feel more comfortable about
Oh,
talking about issues.
like we are the only crazy people who are willing to put themselves out into the world. People say that you shouldn't care about your work and it's a job, and like you should have that disconnection between yourself and your creativity. And I'm like, that's fucking impossible. Like, there are, to a degree, I can let go, but I still put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of heart into the work I do. So like, it's impossible for me to totally disconnect from that. And I think, yeah, as creative people, we always leave a little bit of ourselves and the things that we put out into the world. Because otherwise, what's the fucking point? I think our industry, especially, is a little bit more attuned. And also, like when we talk about the mental health side of things, like I don't know many of my plumber mates or my carpentry mates who have been told that they have to go on social media every day and post 45 times a day and comment to everybody and try all this new AI and do all this, otherwise they're going to be replaced. Do you know what I mean? Like, we
Yeah.
have, because of the industry we're in, the creative industry, the marketing space, design, creativity, like, we are very, I would say, susceptible to new things and new trends because we are the ones who are generally affected by it, especially like creative spaces and how tech's evolving so quickly. So we are all quite on these things that do tend to lead to, negative feelings about ourselves and self doubt and self
Mhm.
sabotage because we are told we have to do this, we have to be doing this, we have to be doing this. And there's not many other industries I see that are told that. So, yeah, good luck to us all. Fucking hell. I'm amazed we're all still here.
I know,
Golly,
I know.
it's mad. Yeah.
So you've described yourself as having a contrarian streak before, kind of getting rid of jargon, challenging defaults. Do you think that comes from this kind of upbringing? Do you think you're a lot more kind of blunt and to the point because of the experiences you've had, the journey you've had?
The word contrarian is so linked in now, isn't it? But I think that's also, yeah, it's like, yeah, I think it's the right word, but it's like, the kind of rebel or the disruptor or the misfit. Do you know what I mean? It's basically like a fucking branding archetype, isn't it? Like, people have made it proper wank. But yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe from my upbringing and obviously being, somebody in authority, like really let me down. Like I trusted them, the school trusted them, my parents trusted them, and then he took advantage of that and an 11-year-old boy. And I think ever since that moment, I really struggled with authority. Hence why I fell out with my parents and all other teachers. And I just got to a point where I just didn't give a fuck about what anybody told me to do because I was like, people are just going to let me down or abuse that or whatever. So I think probably that's where it started. Now, hopefully, I like to feel that I've tailored that into something a little bit more useful, and that's probably comes out in the work that I do and the way and the perspective I have of the world. For me, creativity is all about perspective and looking at things slightly differently. And it's not necessarily about coming up with anything particularly original, but it's just maybe like looking at things in a slightly different way. I think for me, that's where I see creativity and how it plays a big part in my life. When I hear one way to do something or every logo should be this, I'm like, well, I will prove that it doesn't have to be for myself. I think the kind of contrarian perspective, let's call it, on creative careers. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily haven't come into a creative career, like you say, in a traditional sense. I haven't built a traditional business. I would say me and my wife don't run a traditional family. Do you know what I mean? Like we're homeschooling, and although that's probably going to become a little bit more normal, but I think for me, it's always I never try to fit into a box that I've been told I need to fit in. Like, oh, you have to niche down, and you have to have one offer, and you have to like you have to market yourself all the time, although I do that. But like there's a lot of things where I will question them. I'll try them and I'll question them, and I'll also try and look at it from a totally different perspective. And I try and do that through everything, like the way I write, the way I create, the way I put my keynotes and my workshops together, the books that I try and write. I always try to challenge myself to think about it a little bit differently because echo chambers, Ali, like if I wanted, I could sit in a particular echo chamber and just feel like I know everything and I'm freaking brilliant because everybody else in that echo chamber is saying the same thing. Do you know what I mean? It's so easy to find perspectives that match your own.
Mhm.
But I'm one of those people who follows people who he actually does not like. I don't really hate anybody, but I'll follow people I really don't agree with because I want my perspectives to be challenged and I want to um, I've actually somewhat fallen in love with people who I actively really hate. Not hate, hate's the wrong word again, but it's like really just don't agree with. Oh, like this guy speaks absolute bollocks. Do you know what I mean? Most people probably think that about me, to be fair. But like I think like having that kind of like mindset of like I know I don't know everything. I know there's probably always a better way to do something, and I know there's probably always a different way. And I've always been a big champion of like designing your own way. Like there isn't like one way to build a creative career. There isn't one way to build a creative business. There isn't one creative process. Like
Mhm.
there are so many ways to build the life that you want. Like everyone's like, oh, to be successful, you have to be making six figures a month or six figures a year, or you have to be doing this, high ticket that. It's like, well, for some people, like, success is just waking up in the morning. Do you know what I mean? I think about the times like going back to like some troubling times in my life. I was like, just to be able to smile was a success. So why is like all of these arbitrary numbers and why like all these like, things that people are telling you what success is all the time. And I think that again, I've always tried to challenge that and always challenge my perspectives on what does success look like for me. Is it more time with my son?
Mhm.
Is it writing more? Like how can I find more time for the things that light me up?
Yeah.
It's difficult to have that um kind of agency about you if you're not continuously challenging your perspectives. So yeah, I think for me that's probably, I don't even know if I answered the question, but I think that's where my contrarianness comes from. It's probably from, being let down, but then actually, like, you actually, that moment has probably sparked a really interesting thing in my brain that allows me to find it okay to take risks and find it okay to challenge myself and be a little bit braver and say yes to stuff that I would have probably said no to before. And, why not just try this? And if they don't like it, nobody's going to die. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's always been my kind of mindset, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess that success thing, yeah, just kind of a lot of it comes back to the what you were saying earlier with like the social media stuff, right? Like I can find like a little bit myself thinking like, oh, I should be like I could be doing better or I could have this or I could, and actually I'm like, you know what? If I reflect on where I was 5 years ago, I was in a job I fucking hated. I was working late, so I was working weekends. I wasn't seeing my mates. I was struggling with drugs. And I'm like, actually now I get to fucking wake up in the morning and make some cool shit and talk to cool people and actually like for me that's success, right? Be it like you said, waking up in the morning, but also just waking up in the morning with a bit of purpose, with like
Yeah.
some happiness in your heart about what you're going to do for the day.
Yeah, there's this lovely quote. I can't remember who it was by, but essentially the sentence is always measure backwards. I think it potentially was potentially Dr. Benjamin Hardy, um, but don't requote me on that. But yeah, he said always measure backwards, because what we do is we set goals and we, think of all the things we want to achieve, and then what happens is, so we set our goals here and we are here. So what we do is we will get to here. And when we get to here, there's a gap. I think it was Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I think I was right. It's in his book called the Gap and the Gain. But what we do is we get to here, and then we judge ourselves on not completing that top 10%. Like, oh, what could I have done
Hmm.
to do better? What could I have done to do this? What could I have done to that? But if you actually measure backwards, you look at all the things you have achieved. And I think exactly like you highlighted there, like, you're doing the things today that you dreamt of 3 years ago. But there'll be certain moments in your day where you're thinking you should be doing more, or like, I
Hmm.
haven't done this yet. But if you think back to that person and that version of yourself a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you're probably well exceeding all of your expectations. And I think we're taught to always chase more, like the next mountain, the next goal, bigger, bigger, bigger. You made 500 grand this year, make 600. Like, when's enough enough? You know what I mean? When can
Hmm.
we just sit down and enjoy the things that we've managed to do? And I think, yeah, always measure backwards is something that whenever I'm feeling a little bit low, fluffy, wobbly about, am I doing enough? Should I be doing more? Like, blah, blah, blah. I always go, well, you would have been dreaming to do this stuff 5 years ago. So
That's right.
just enjoy it.
Yeah, reflection is super fucking important. I try and like push that into my mind as much as I can. And whenever I feel myself like challenge myself on like, expectations, I'm like, actually just take a step back first. And then I also find that like the more you do that, the more likely you are then to exceed or achieve what you did have in mind about the future, right? Because you're kind of more appreciative of yourself, where you're at, your skills, etc. Just boost you up a little bit. I think it's really, really fucking important to just like
Yeah, massive.
reflect.
Yeah, 100%.
So I would like to talk a bit about socials and kind of you kicking it off like in the early days. I'd love to dive into the personal branding stuff because I know this was like we
Yeah.
had a good chat about this when we spoke, and I listened to Matt's podcast as well, which was really great which was a really
Yeah.
great listen as well. Love to just dive into personal branding because I think it is a weird and interesting space, and there's a lot of shit about it that pisses me off as well.
Yeah.
I love to know, like, in specific, what annoys you the most about it? Is it like the coaches, the framing, the people
God.
maybe being fake? Like, what is your main gripe?
What is my main gripe? This is gonna be tough because I have so many gripes, but I would say my biggest, there's probably 2, or 3. I don't know.
Or
But
4 or
I
5 or
think
s
I think maybe firstly, personal branding is often positioned as a solution to a commercial trust problem. I think that's probably one of the
Mhm,
biggest things. Like, if you are famous and you build an audience, you will be rich and people just chuck money at you and they'll trust you and blah blah. It's bollocks. It doesn't happen that way. So that would probably be the biggest one for me is this idea of it being a shortcut. Do you know what I mean, to success? And we've lived through your Jake Pauls and like your YouTube influencers, and I think there was a study done. It was basically asking like a lot of like early 20-year-olds, what do you want to be when you grow up? And 80% of them said influencer. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I saw that one.
And I'm like, what? What the fuck? Because do you know how many influencers actually make a living? Like, not very many. So like it looks the part, do you know what I mean? And like I said,
Mhm.
the highlight reel can make something look one way, but actually in real life it is the other way. So I think from my point of view, that's probably one of the biggest ones that I worry about, is that you have to become this to become this, which is wrong. Because I know a lot of people who are on social media, not on social media, making bank. Do you know what I mean? I also know there's a lot of people on social media with hundreds of thousands of followers struggling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't just don't. All right. Now, I think the other thing that annoys me about personal branding is that the majority of people talking about personal branding don't work in branding and don't understand what branding is. Like that
Mhm.
is probably one of the biggest things for me, is that there is a conceptual misunderstanding, or yeah, misunderstanding of actually what a brand is and how it works, how it's formed, how long it takes. And I think that lack of knowledge probably annoys me a lot, because, God, I just see so much of it now, and people just chucking the word authenticity on top of everything. Know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
can't, know what I mean? Build an authentic personal brand. Like, if you're trying to make money, like the one main objective of brand building is to essentially, when you're building a brand, you're basically manufacturing a version of something to connect with a certain type of person, for example. Very simple terms. So you can't be truly authentic when you're trying to manufacture a brand. It's impossible. I mean, there's just so many things, Jimmy. So many things that annoy me about it. But I would say like the big focus for me is just, yeah, definitely a lot of the people, especially like pushing personal branding, when you hear them talking about personal branding, they're not really talking about branding. They're talking about like what you should wear, like, and like fucking like I mean, it's absolute bonkers. Like, you just build your personal brand online by building video content. Like, okay, like that's not personal brand. That's not branding, is it? That's marketing at best. So, like, I think yeah, just a massive lack of knowledge, a massive lack of understanding, and also the agenda behind it of like, I will teach you to be yourself so you can be rich and famous, but to do that, you got to give me loads of money first. I personally believe, like, when you think about, God, you're going to take me off it. You don't need to talk for the next hour. I've got this, Jimmy. Right. So I
It's
think
in your hands.
so. Yeah, I'm off. I've gone now. So when I think about like the kind of bracket, because it is a thing. Like, I think that's a very important thing to express, that there are humans who are brands, who have the power of brand. But a brand isn't something necessarily that I can claim I am. It's always something that is it's something that is given to me. It's a perception of me. So again, you can't claim to be a personal brand coach, because and also the word personal and brand, they don't even connect. Like, I'm going off on a tangent here, but like, there's so many things. But like, when you think about your Jordans, or like, when these people become like, they're elevated beyond the thing that they're known for, basketball, Jordan, and then the Nike stuff, and then how that human that exploded that particular moment, and that brand and the collaboration they had. Now, that happened, and, like, you think of Brand Beckham, you think of, like, all
Mhm.
of these other, like, big brands, human-based brands. They were really, 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 really fucking good at what they do. So, the personal brand came at the end, after
Yeah, gotcha.
decades of hard work, kicking a ball, throwing a ball in a hoop. I'm just taking 2 examples here, but there's billions of them. But you even think of somebody like a Paul Cher, or Draplin, or some of these big designer names in our space. Like, they have built, or they've earned, I should say, the right to be called a brand, because of the commitment to their craft and their mastery of their craft over a prolonged period of time. So that's essentially what a brand is. A brand doesn't happen in fucking 90 days. You can't shortcut it. Do you know what I mean? You can't just say you've got one. It's not up to you. So when I see people positioning all these young kids who aren't focused on the mastery of their craft, are just focused on creating fucking content for algorithms. Like, what are we mastering? Like, what reputation are we building? What brand are we building? That's not like I said, like, it shouldn't come first, is what I'm saying. It's something that is earned at the end of a career, not necessarily at the end of a career, but once you've built enough trust and built enough craft, and you have a mastery of something, you've built a recognizable reputation around something, like, then maybe that human element has power behind, but it's still branding. Why does it have to be personal branding? Why can't it just be branding? Like, why do we have to add personal into it? Do you know why? It's because people can make fucking money out of it. That's why. It's marketing. Do you know what I mean? Especially then, I'll tell you what we'll do, Jimmy, is we'll chuck in authentic personal branding. We'll chuck in the word authentic in front of it as well, just to really get the humans going. And it's all just bollocks. And like I said, like, when I the big thing for me is just this basically claiming it's a solution to a commercial trust problem. And that's the I'm gonna I will believe there'll be a generation of people who spend all their time creating content, following trends, building big audiences that won't buy from them.
Hmm.
Because they haven't mastered their craft. There's no backbone to it. It's all just stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I think the personal brand stuff comes at the end. But you're going to have to stop me because I'm just going to keep going up.
I was going to say, well, you're obviously very visible online as well. So I'm curious in terms of how you balance kind of like bringing in and then growing your audience while staying true to yourself. Is it a case of just putting fucking good work out there, putting out shit that you believe in, that you agree with, and just like hoping it sticks? Or is there any
Yeah,
like
I
strategy
mean
to it?
that's the I think yeah, I mean that it's quite easy to like, because I've had people when I've had this conversation about personal branding that they will go, but you've built your personal brand and blah 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 blah. It's all right for you. And I was like, well, that was never my intention. I didn't set out to build a personal brand. I just started sharing my work. And I started sharing my work so I got clients. And then what I did
Mhm.
was I just kept on sharing work. Not once have I ever claimed to be or believe I am a personal brand. I believe I've worked very, very hard at my craft. I believe I've built a good reputation within my industry, but I still don't see myself as like a personal brand, although I'm called Made by James. But you know why I called myself Made by James? It's because I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do when I grew up. So I knew as
Yeah.
long as I was making something, it would
Uh-huh.
work. Whether I was a designer, a chef, a gardener, it was all made by James. So I was like, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
what's the longevity here? What's the longevity play? Rather than calling myself James Martin, logo designer and extraordinaire person, whatever it is. But yeah, I think like for me, like mastery of craft, like mastery of something will always be the power, especially as we're going into this seemingly more difficult space within our creative industry with the tech and the tools and all of the other bits and pieces. Designers are going to be replaced, videographers are going to be replaced, animators are going to be replaced, no more artists, like no more this, no more that. Golly, it's difficult not to get depressed, isn't it, going on the internet today? But
Yeah.
the point is that there are certain things that will never be taken from you and they can't be replaced, and those are your experiences, those are the amount of time and effort you've put in to educate yourself to get better. Like, the process of mastery is
Mhm.
wonderful because you're never going to achieve it. Like, you're never going to be the best and you're never going to be finished. Do you know what I mean? So when you go into your working world or your career or your life with that kind of mindset that you're always going to get better, there's always something to learn, like all of those stuff you're learning along that way is going to make you irreplaceable. I truly believe that. I don't think any tech can replace me. They could probably replace parts of me that I'm
Yeah.
not very good at, but they don't have access to all that stupid drug induced wankery that makes me think of ideas. They just don't have that. They don't have that. They have what's available to them, and that's all the stuff on the internet which is average. Do you know what I mean? Now,
Until the robots start banging MDMA, and then we're fucked.
yeah, well, I'll tell you what, then I'll start again. It'll be great fun. Imagine having like a 24-hour robot that you can go on benders with. It would be absolutely brilliant, wouldn't it? So
Dangerous.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think like it's really difficult because personal branding is such a so universally kind of used term now. It's like the word, I think of it like the word love. Like
Yeah.
I tell everybody I love them, but like that's just like a modern thing. Like whereas like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, if you loved somebody, it meant a certain thing. Now everybody's like, love you, bro, love you, love you. It's like basically being like neutralized, that word. And I think personal branding is doing the same thing to the branding world,
Yeah.
where it's just like, well, everybody's welcome, everybody's a brand. That's not true.
Mhm.
But because nobody questions it, and somebody's got 200 million thousand followers, and they talk about personal branding being the way to success, everybody goes, oh my God, this must be the way. Because they're not questioning it. They're not maybe knowledgeable enough, which is also fair, to understand what is and what isn't. And I think that's why it's so important, especially with the world that we're in, like to when you hear somebody say something, rather than go, okay, I'll do that, like, why not question it? Why not research that person? Why not understand whether they have done the things that they're saying that they can do? Like, where's the results? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Like, question stuff. And I think then, after you've done that process, then make your decision. But I think everything's done on face value, 20 seconds, quick results, it changes everything. But I don't believe, like I said, a brand takes a huge amount of time to build. It's not something that we can claim, just like we can't claim to be authentic. If I said to you, I'm being really authentic right now, you'd go, fuck off. What a wanky. That's not true. But you can, after this call, you can go and speak to somebody else and go, do you know what? He came across really authentically himself.
Mhm.
Because this is the other thing about like the personal branding thing is like it takes, like, for example, like you can only understand people that you are in very, very close proximity with. So for example, like I can I can't even say that I think you're being authentic because I haven't seen you in enough situations to know whether I'm seeing the real Jimmy yet or not. That will happen over time as we become better friends. But I need to see you in this context. I need to see you in tough context. I need to see you in good context. I need to see you in indifferent context to be able to judge you in the right way, to have this right perception of you, to know whether you are being authentically you or not. So
Mhm.
when I tell you how to be authentic online, and you got to do these things to be authentic online. How is like
Yeah, it's bollocks.
it doesn't work, does it? It doesn't work. You need proximity. You need to be able to. You need proximity to others. You need to see them in multiple contexts to know whether they're being
Mm.
real or not. And like I said, when people are building a brand and they're trying to manufacture authenticity, it's basically performed authenticity, and that
Mhm.
doesn't sound very good, does it? I've
That
gone again, Jimmy. Gone again.
segues really nicely actually into the what I wanted on the subject of mastering craft, but also just kind of like again knowing people are how they are in different scenarios. One thing I've seen a lot when we've been hiring recently, and one thing I've noticed quite a lot is there's a lot of really really fucking genuinely talented people out there that are
Yeah.
a lot less busy than people who are quite frankly in some cases quite mediocre. I don't know if this is because they're better at building relationships or being visible, or whether it's a mindset problem or a marketing problem for the people that are less busy. But I'd love to hear your kind of take on that because it's something I've just kind of noticed weirdly in the last few months.
So, can you just reframe that question for me? So, there's a lot of really, really talented people who, I just want to make sure I get this right. There's a lot of really, really talented people who potentially aren't as good as putting themselves out there, but there are a lot of, let's say, average people who are really good at putting themselves out there. And like, so what's the question there? Sorry, just trying to get.
So do you think that is linked to the fact like is that because of marketing being in the room? Like what's your take on the reason for the difference between those kind of like people being busy? Because you should look at the person that's really talented, right, and be like their work's really fucking good. They should be they should be packed right now.
Yeah,
And you kind of see people that are less skilled that are even busier. And I'm
yeah.
just curious whether you think that is a marketing problem on the subject of kind of like, putting yourself out there, being in the room, etc.
Yeah, do we know whether they are actually busy or not? I mean, that would be the first question. It's very easy for me to do a load of fake projects and pretend that I'm really, really busy. I think that's again, this perception thing is like the visibility, the reach, the perception thing is such an interesting thing when it comes to brand perception or business. Like it's very easy for me to look busy, but I might be
Mhm.
still living with my mum eating out of her fridge. Do you know what I mean? As a 40-year-old man. Nobody knows. I mean, I'm not really. I still eat from my mum's fridge when I go see her. But I think it's really, really interesting. Is like again, like you perceive, like because I will look at people the same and go, "Oh my god, they're incredibly talented," but they'll be very honest about the fact that they don't have work, and there'll be also people who are, let's be honest, like have no talent. Who are basically just copying other people, showing that they've got all these projects going on. But then I look up the project, that company doesn't even exist. So it's a perception game that a lot of people have learned to play because if I am perceived to be busy and working and hustling, kind of emotes this trust, quote unquote, that I must be good at what I do because I'm so busy all the time. Therefore, the client might go, "Oh, that person is, you know, more interesting and more investable." But the problem is then, like, I've managed to bring that client in based on fake work, no client conversation. So when I'm actually working with that client, they're like, "Hey, these two things don't add up. Where's all this
Mhm.
creativity? Like, you don't even speak to me. You don't reply to me on my emails. Like, you've taken my money. I haven't heard from you for 4 months." Do you know what I mean? So it's a really interesting, yeah, what's the word? Paradox. I don't even know if paradox is the right word, but I think it is a very interesting has a very interesting duality to it. That kind of perception of looking busy and actually being busy are two very different things because that person who is talented, who is a little bit down on themselves, is probably be making more money still than the person who is seemingly really busy
Yeah.
online. So we just don't know. I don't know enough of the data to be able to question it either way. But
Mhm.
I do believe this is like for me, agency. I don't really like to use the word agency too much because again, it's another word that's been bounded around by all the marketing bros. But there is it is an important word to understand in the sense of like taking control of your choices, and we have the ability to do that essentially, and to have that agency and you are in control of the things you do and the effort you put in and what you consume and what you create. Do you know what I mean? You are in control of that to some degree. And I think when I think about the things that we're kind of moving into, we talk about people being replaced and we talk about, lack of demand and the uncertainty. I still believe that that kind of sense of self and your personal perspective and your kind of willingness to try and do things for yourself is going to be the key to your success. So like the creative industry is in such a funny flux right now, whereas like COVID, maybe pre-COVID, it was all very exciting. Everybody was seemingly doing really well. Work was there.
Mhm.
Everybody was, happy. Social media hadn't fucked with our brains as much then. So we're starting to
Good old
learn.
days.
Yeah, the good old days where, I used to just post pictures of my dog and get a like. It was great. But like now we're over a decade in, and there's been a lot of there's a big case that Meta just lost.
Yeah, I saw that.
Basically came out, yeah, like basically talking about detrimenting mental health for this young, I think young girl. I can't remember. I don't really know. We don't really know who it is, but that's a very prominent. That sets a precedent now. Do you know what I mean? These platforms have actively, which we all know deep down, they are addictive, they do bring us in, and it does create a lot of mental health issues, which we know. But we we still, and this is not as a detriment to that young lady or whoever it was, like we still choose whether to turn it on or turn it off, like you decided to take drugs or not take drugs, like I did. Do you know what I mean? There has to become a point where we have to take control, we have to take the agency. So if
Mhm.
we are struggling with certain things, my biggest gripe, this is another one of my biggest gripes, is people going on social media to complain about social media.
Yeah.
Like, I find that the most ridiculous scenario. Going on Instagram to complain about the Instagram algorithm and to complain about social media in general. I'm like, I get it. I know it's tough and I know it's not the same, but what what are you achieving by putting your energy into this particular moment or this particular action? I think, we have to get better at knowing the things that energize us and knowing the things that de-energize us and trying to do more of the things that do energize us and less the things that don't. Now, everybody will go, well, not everybody, but some people might go, well, I need to be seen. I need the visibility. I need the reach. I need this. I need that. And I'm like, potentially true. Yes, we do need to market ourselves. We do need to put ourselves out there. But have you ever asked your clients, like, or your potential clients, where they hang out? Because if it isn't
Yeah.
on social media and it isn't on Instagram and it isn't on YouTube, I mean,
That was gonna be my next question actually, was, like, being in the room, right? Like,
yeah,
we met in a room at an event,
yeah,
right? And I think, the more that, AI is kind of, like, automating a lot of stuff and getting involved in every fucking aspect of our life, and the more that social media is draining people, like, for me, that value of just having face-to-face time, it's why we do so many events at our studio, is to, like, just get out and actually just meet people, like, in the flesh. I notice as well that's something that, I find you're always kind of here, there, and everywhere, and going and stuff. And do you think that that is going to become more and more important as we move forward now for designers that want to build relationships, get work, etc. To actually just like you said, meet clients where they are, where it's offline. I think there's you just get much better connection that way, right?
yeah, I agree, but I will also rebuttal that, where not everybody has the get in a group, get in a room,
Sure.
network vibe. Do you know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
I also truly believe that the first time you do everything, it's really, really tough and you get better and better and better and better at it the more you do it. So I understand there's the I'm an introvert thing, which I do believe is true, but the way you become, I think people are generally introverted around people that they don't know. I think
Yeah.
once they get to know people, they're actually not introverts. So the simple math there is put yourself into more rooms with the same people and you'll be less introverted. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to go to different rooms all the time. You just have to be in a room for long enough to build the confidence.
I think
Uh,
it's pushing yourself outside your like you probably wouldn't guess it from me, but I'm a fucking anxious person. Like I overthink stuff, and I'm
I
really
can
fucking
tell you're a little bit
self-conscious.
twitchy. I can see. I can see.
But I honestly like I used to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
But when I remember when I first started at my old studio, like I was just going to every fucking event on Eventbrite that was to
Yeah.
do with network, and I was like scared as shit when I was going to these things.
Yeah.
But again, you just desensitize yourself to it. Like the more you go to it, the more you kind of get used to it, and the more comfortable you get. But I was 100% there, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes you do need to just push yourself out your comfort zone a little bit more, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, let's take it. I mean, perspective. You know me. I love to look at things in a slightly different way. So I have a beautiful little 3-year-old boy and a wife. My wife Kate, that I married. We've been married for 12 years. I've known her for 25 years almost. Seems like a long time. But today I have those things with her. And that all started with one conversation. I think about my role at Lincoln Design Co. That journey happened over a decade. It started with one conversation. It started with one like on Instagram. It started with one comment. It started with one call. Do you know what I mean? And over a period of time, an opportunity came out of that. So what I'm trying to say here is that all the good things that have happened in my life have all started with a conversation. And I believe all the good things that have happened in your life have started with a conversation. I believe everybody here, all the good things, all the best friends that they've had, all of the best friends they've not had, have still, I should say, all started because you were in a room and you had a conversation, you got to know somebody, and now you are where you are. So
Mhm.
I like to think of that as business as well. So when I think about that from a business perspective, I think if I start a lot of conversations and I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, potentially that's going to maybe one day get into something. What's the worst
Yeah.
that's going to happen? I'm going to have a new friend. How wonderful is that? If that is the worst thing that happens out of starting a conversation in business,
Mhm.
is that you make a new friend. What a wonderful fucking thing that is. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think we underestimate because of social media, Zoom, online, digital. It's very easy now to not put yourself in those situations, to not go out. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm a little bit older than you, Jimmy, but we're probably similar in age. But I met my wife at the pub. Like we used to go out as a group of people. I've got a lot of people who we've all kind of grown apart a little bit, but we all get together every now and again. We all met at the pub, like at the rec in the playground as
Yeah.
kids. And you think about all of the best, like I said, the best things that happened to me all started with one conversation. So if I take that energy and I put that into my working life, I think you'd be amazed at what can happen. But this is again the bit of the problem, a little bit of the people want everything very very quickly, and they always want
Yeah.
something out of something. Didn't
Mhm.
start that conversation with my wife 20 years ago thinking I was going to have a kid with her. I didn't
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
that conversation a decade ago with Dan knowing that I was going to be a partner in his business. Like, I did it because I
Yeah.
generally loved their company. I wanted to get to know them. I wanted to build a relationship with them. You never know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, I really love that notion about like the worst you're gonna have is a good friend. Like I think, the creative industry is full of so many interesting, amazing characters. And I've had people, that might have been a conversation that I thought, oh, we might be able to work together. And then I've just made bloody good friends with them. I'll go out on the piss with them. Like I've made
Yeah.
some really good friends through working in this industry. But then I've also had somewhere like 4 years later, they'll be then, there's a project we want to work on with you. I think that's a great way to look at it. Is like you end up with so many friendships when you put yourself out there and have these conversations. And sometimes it leads to something, sometimes it doesn't. But like you said, at the worst case scenario, you meet some fucking cool people.
Yeah, I think the problem is that we are taught now, and I think that this is not anybody's fault. We're actually taught that, so it is somebody's fault, but it's not our fault that we are taught to always take. What can we get from this particular thing? Like, how can we leverage this particular thing? Like, where's the business opportunity? Like, where's the money?
Mm,
Where's the
yeah.
success? Like, what's the point? Don't put any energy into something that's not worth it. So what's happened is we've got this culture now of like, what can I take out of this? If it doesn't happen within a month, I'm on to something else.
Yeah.
It's the same with careers. It's the same with relationships. Like, well, it's not working. Like my marriage is like, I love my wife, but it's not always easy. But what I don't do is I don't go, we've had this argument, right? See you later. I'm done. And I'll go and find somebody else. That's seemingly what happens a lot now. Apparently, like, not many relationships get over like 5 years. And I'm like, what, like, is it because we're not willing to work hard enough? We're not willing to have conversations? Like, that's not like a relation. There's a reason you got together. It's probably because you love to each other to some degree. Like, I don't want to kind of get too deep into this because I know how difficult relationships can be, and some can be quite abusive and bad. But I think there is this kind of essence of like, there's always the grass is greener always. There's always a
Yes.
better option. So, like, if this isn't like 100% working for me, I'm going to go and find something else that will. But that's not always the case. And I think if you're always looking to take rather than put time into something, give time to something, and then just not even in the hope that something will come out of it. Like I said, if the worst that comes out of it is a good conversation once a year with a new friend. Like, how wonderful is that? Do you know, like, why
Mhm.
isn't that enough? Like, why does there have to be some reward at the end of the tunnel? This is why you know, I understand funnels and I work in funnels a little bit as well. But it's like there is this kind of transactional relationship thing that happens, isn't there? Where it's like, I'm putting all this out there to hopefully get this back. Whereas if you actually remove yourself from that a little bit, it's like just put yourself out there, give as much as you can, and then do you know what? Even if like a snippet of those things turns into something great, but the majority of it won't. But that should
Mhm.
also be okay. Should
Yeah.
be
Well,
okay.
it strips away someone's authenticity, right? When
Oh
someone's
fucking hell!
clearly just doing it for a
Authenticity.
reason, and you're just like,
Yeah. Well,
I had to
you
bring
can
it up.
see it in a lot of, like, marketing stuff. I love spying this stuff is when, every like, there's certain people who will be, like, proper aggressive, like, rage, 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 like, comment bait, like, all this kind of stuff. They'll love it, they'll
Yeah.
gobble it up. But you know what? When they want you to give them money, they switch, and they go,
Yeah.
"I've been where you are. Oh, I understand you." For the last 6 months, they've been telling you you're a dick and you're wrong, but then as
Yeah.
soon as they want money from you, they change perspective. Then it's all about, like, mirroring and all this stuff, and I sit there and go like, "How is nobody reading through this absolute douchebag?" Golly. But it's the thing, isn't it? Like, it's just the thing. Is marketing is there is a I think there is a right way to do it and a not so right way to do it. And again, there isn't a right and wrong, I should say, because design your own way. But I think there are some things that people are starting to see through. I think that's
Mhm.
probably because they've been so susceptible to it from everybody. Like, certain people, you can go and join a certain group, and everybody's now selling the same thing, going into your DMs, doing the same thing, doing the same thing. And you're like, you're all a part of the same group because I had some other dude tell me that same thing yesterday. God, I think we can blame Hormozy for that. I don't think it's
Can't stand
particularly
that.
I don't think it's particularly his problem. But, like, again, it's that same kind of, like, funnel marketing thing. Like, you do this, this works, it worked for me, it'll work for everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work like that. So yeah, sorry. I actually quite like Hormozy. He's one of those
Yeah.
people. He's no, well, he's one of those people that I follow because he says some absolutely brilliant things, but then I see some not so brilliant things. But that also is probably just my perspective. Like, it also depends on the mood that I'm in. He's clearly an incredible dude who's done so many great
Yeah.
things, but I don't
Maybe I'm
think.
just jealous.
Yeah, but I don't think all his, yeah, this is muscles. He's a big dude. Do you know what I mean? But I love the fact that he gives a lot. To be fair, and, like, I think there's a lot of good stuff he does, but I don't think a lot of that can be taught as well. Like, he's got a very particular drive that allows him to do the certain things. And I think people shortcut that. I don't think you can. I think people try to shortcut the success, whereas, like, I don't think it's as easy as, like, take my formula, run it over here, see you after $1 million, John. Like, it just doesn't happen like that sometimes. I think that's, again, like, when we tie it back to personal branding, authenticity, brand building, the internet, all the things, mastery of craft. Like, that mastery, it cannot be shortcutted, and it shouldn't be. I think, like, what's the point in shortcutting everything? Just fucking die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, with so much of what makes stuff unique as well as what you learn on the way, right? It's the
Yeah,
journey there
exactly.
rather than just that quick
Yeah.
fix. So
Yeah, when I said just fucking die, I don't mean just die, people. I actually meant, like, there's no point, there's no
that's going to be the
growth, and
highlight.
there's no yeah, yeah. Just have that as the quote at the beginning of this as a, like, little intro reel. Just die. But my point is, like, if there's nothing to live for, if you're not learning and you're not growing and you're not experiencing and you're not trying and you're not failing and you're not learning, then what is the point? I don't know what the point is if there isn't a little bit of wobble along the way. The wobble is the win. There you go. You can use that one rather than die. Yeah.
The wobble is the win. I like
Yeah.
that. It's what you grow and learn most from as well, isn't it? When you fuck up, I feel like the hardest moments are it's cliche, but it is always where you
Exactly.
kind of
Yeah.
learn
Exactly.
and grow the most, right?
Yeah.
We should talk about motion a little bit.
Please.
I'm just thinking. I would love to hear a little bit from like changes that you've seen. Obviously, you've been working in design, logo design for a long, long, long time, and I'd love to hear like how conversations have changed with clients around motion. Like, do you find it's being asked for? I'm taking a real divert now. Do
Hey,
you find it's
which
being asked
we
for more?
needed it. We needed it. We just talked about all the other stuff and we shouldn't have
We
talked
could
about.
chat shit about personal branding for so long,
I
couldn't we?
know it's easy.
But yeah, I'd love to know your perception from being in the industry for so long. Like, you obviously pushed for it for a long time, but are you noticing a shift in clients now? Like, maybe asking for it more, or do you still having to like push for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's client dependent, obviously, as always. I think it's like with anything, when I go back 20 years, when I started, animating frame by frame in Flash, all that goodness. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was like animation, like, especially when it comes to like it's the environment, isn't it? So like animation back then was potentially saved for like really shit websites and all of the rest of it. Animating buttons on rollover. Do you know what I mean? What wonderful days
That was
they were.
my GCSE fucking
Yeah,
project.
it's so good, isn't it? So good. But like I think when we talk about brand and we talk about identity, application and touch points have increased dramatically over especially the last decade, but definitely over the last 20, and even more so over the last 50. Let's be honest. I can only speak about the period I've worked in. Yeah, I think for me, it was always when we think about differentiation and we talk about flexibility in identity systems and we talk about um, you know attention. Even if you look at social media, like there's a reason that people are willing to now watch a 20-second reel rather than read through a 20 slide, carousel, for example, is because their
Mm,
attention spans are shorter. Because maybe it's not necessarily the attention spans are shorter, which they are, but it's also the fact that there's just so much more noise, so it's more difficult to stand out. Whereas 20 years ago, you'd probably print something in the local newspaper, radio, probably couldn't afford TV. So it was all quite localized, wasn't it? But now we're kind of globally accessible at any particular times. Now everybody has access and now everybody can build and can create. There's a lot of noise out there. So from an animation standpoint, especially with an identity work, we are definitely seeing a lot of uptake. And I think it's a big differentiator from a brand studio point of view, especially, like I said, within an identity that moves and is fluid and is flexible is much more interesting than something that is static. And I also think it has to move now. There
mhm,
has to be an element of kinetic motion. There has to be an element of movement and flexibility to some degree. So we are definitely seeing it's still probably something that we have to promote and push, but it's very easy to show the power, especially within like a sales call. Like this is it still, and then this is what's possible. It's not a difficult sell once they see what
yeah,
can actually be built and how it then interacts with, like I said, the different applications and how it can flex to different scenarios based on its need. So yeah, it's definitely something that we still have to push because again, like we know what it can do, we know its potential and its possibility, but some of my clients they still don't even know how to work their email. They're like, like some of them, they're just so like embedded in like building their thing over here that they don't really know what they want or what they need or what's possible. And I think that's probably more of a kinder way to think. But they know what they think they need, but they don't understand why they need it or what it's going to do for them and their business. So I think there's still a lot of educating around, the things that people do and do not need. And especially at the different stages that they're at. If a client comes to me and they are the beginning of their journey, like I'm not going to be sitting there upselling animation to them. I'm probably going to be saving that for somebody who's looking to scale, looking to grow, looking to, like again, like maybe not necessarily disrupt, but like position themselves as something different in their market that they're already established in. Because again, like, it does cost extra money, doesn't it? So I think it always, for me, doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it's animation, identity, it's always tailored to where they are at.
mm,
But I know, and I've seen enough data from my clients to know that the ones that are moving, the ones that have that element of motion are always the ones that people remember. And I think when we talk about brands, recognizable reputations, like anything we can do to be memorable, um, is a win. And I think motion's I'm a massive advocate for it. I have been for a long time. I was animating my logos quite early on, and upselling them like within my clients very early on. It's like, oh, I can do this, but then I can, for an extra, I think it was like so 250 quid, I can animate it. Just like, fucking 250 quid now. Golly, they're getting absolute steal, especially how much long it was taking us to do it. But like, again, like it's one of those things that you do it and like you test it and then more people ask for it. And then you do it better and you get better. And then you, like I said, like with the, I said, like with flexible and like fluid systems and stuff, it's such a massive bolt on to anything. So yeah, big believer, lover of the motion. And I always urge a lot of like designers, like young identity designers, smaller studios. It's not easy just to learn animation. It's a bit easier now with something like Cavalry or something like that. But like you're still limited to what you can do. Partnering, being a big advocate for people like partnering with people who are really good at what they do. So, like I am a shit animator, proper shit. But I hired somebody who was really good because I knew that would elevate my agency. And
Mhm.
at Lincoln, animators, Dan's not sitting there animating stuff. We hire animators who are on the
Yeah.
teams. Like I think there is a lot of power, especially from a network standpoint, as a small creative studio, like having like you're good at your core thing. So that might be brand or identity or strategy or whatever it is. And then having these people that you can connect with to bring that identity to life, which is essentially what motion does, is such a power play that people can make money on top of as well. White labeling
Yeah.
other people's services to grow their ability to create bigger, cooler things. Because when you build bigger identities and you share bigger case studies and more cooler work, the funny thing is bigger projects, more cooler work come and find you. So like you can't lose really. I always like to think about it. My clients are continuously paying me to market myself. Well, isn't that like a wonderful thing? I get to use their work that they pay me for to market myself to get more work.
Yeah.
It's like, isn't that the dream? It's great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One other thing I really wanted to ask you about, actually, just on the subject you mentioned about there being a lot of noise, and design's definitely getting like democratized, which I think is great. I think accessibility to the tool is
It's
really,
great
really
to an
important.
extent.
It's great to an extent, and it is creating a lot of noise right now. There is
Yeah,
a lot of crap out there, and a lot of amazing work too, but there is definitely a lot more crap out there than there
of
used to
course it
be.
is. Yeah.
You recently did a talk with D&AD where you were kind of arguing about creativity being dead or alive, and that creativity itself wasn't actually dead. It was the environment that's disappearing. I'm curious, when you say that, what does that environment look like, and who are the people that are responsible to protect that environment?
Oh, God. Responsibility. You can't talk to me about responsibility. I'm not very good at responsibility. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, again, incredibly honored to be invited to chat at the DNAD. Again, that's one of those things that measure backwards. Like 5 years ago, that would never have happened, and now it's happened. Tick of goodness, happiness, smiley box for James. That's yeah, we were obviously given a question: is creativity dead or alive? And that's a big thing that they're talking about right now, and rightly so, trying to bring the conversation. And like again, contrarian twat who likes to try and think about it in a slightly different way. My kind of theory was I don't think creativity will ever die, but I do believe that the space it needs to do its best work is shrinking but for a lot of different reasons. Because when you are constantly being told, when people who are like, when people's jobs are being creative, when those people are continuously being told they're about to be replaced, that doesn't create the best mindset or space
Yeah.
for creativity. That was kind of a more interesting kind of topic of conversation for me because, like, when we're in a state of panic, which is what is being caused right now, you're going to be replaced, you're going to be replaced, you're going to be replaced. That doesn't make you think bigger or
Mhm.
think of the future. You become very protective and risk averse and less brave and less courageous because you're worried, you're panicked
Mhm.
about what's coming. Those do not create the constraints for true creativity to be able to thrive. So yeah, that was kind of my biggest kind of argument there. And when it comes to like the responsibility side of it, I mean, I think it's tough. I know we've talked about agency and we've talked about getting up and just trying to be less distracted and do the right things, but I think it's a really tough thing, and I'm not going to sit here and try to undermine how difficult it might be for a lot of people right now, especially in the creative industry, who are being told that they're constantly being replaced. That is not a good energy to live with, and we're all living with it. It's not just one or two people. It's like as a whole, like being told you're constantly going to be replaced does not fill you with joy, does it? Like, what's the
Mm,
point? What's the point in creating? What's the point in putting any effort in? So, yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, I mean, what we got to try to do is we have to try to create the space for creativity. We have to try and find ways to practice, to find the room for our creativity to be able to thrive. Now that is different for so many different people, but I think we have a responsibility to ourselves, and like I don't want this to kind of come across harsh in any way, and it's not supposed to be, but I think this particular moment will also um prove whether this is something that you want. I think for me, this is a real turning point. It's going to be a turning point for a lot of people. It's like, how much do you really fucking want this? Like, how much do you want to be known as a creative? How much do you want to be known as a designer, an artist? Like, how much do you want it? Because now we're being tested. And that's the way I like to think about it. And I said, this isn't like a negative thing. This is like time to show up. Like, I know you've been showing up before, but it's been easy. We've had it good. Now it ain't so good. And there will be times again when it is good again, and then it won't be good again. You've seen how tech has disrupted
mhm.
all industry for many, many, millennia, really. Let's be honest. There's always good times and bad times, good times and bad times. But I truly believe the people who like rock through it, keep developing their craft, keep finding ways to be creative, keep pushing their creativity, keep trying to be braver, even though every fiber of their being is telling them to not be. We
Mhm.
got this stupid thing in our brain called the amygdala, and it's got one job, and that job is to scan for threat, react quickly and stop us from dying. And right
Right.
now, our amygdalas are fire in our brain. They're like panic, 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 stress, 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 stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. Just you hide and you run away. Maybe the win is to do the opposite. Maybe it's
Yeah.
like, well, if it's all going to go to shit, why don't I just go fucking batshit crazy with it and see what happens? Like, it's never been easier to build the thing. It's never been easier to create the thing, start the thing, do the thing. Like, why not just do it? Why not just go? And
Mhm.
I don't want to kind of undersell the difficulty a lot of people are kind of going through right now, but I do believe there's again the agency, and we have to take some responsibility because we are being tested, and the people who pass that test will flourish, I believe.
I also think as well, as much as it poses a threat, it does also pose a massive opportunity for new ways to work, new ways to be creative. Like, I think there's a big kind of disparity between people, a lot of people, and I think it's changing a lot now, but a lot of people would look at AI and just see it as an input output slop generating piece of shit when it comes to creativity, right? But there are studios that are using it very unique in their
Yeah.
workflow, not to do the creating, but like, how can we kind of go weird with this, and how can we use this tool to like do new stuff and still be at the helm of the creative direction of it, but it's opening up these new possibilities, or it's making things quicker for us. So I think there is also, while there is a detriment in a lot of ways, there is also this whole new kind of areas to explore working with tools. Like, we were plumbing a load of stuff in between like Gemini and Cavalry and doing all this stuff like really iterative, really quick, and like this weird and crazy shit that not necessarily would have thought of, or we wouldn't be able to do it as quickly. And I think, yeah, as much as there is a lot of like scare around it, there's also so many new possibilities of working and new kind of things to offer off the back of it. So
Yeah.
I think, I was very pessimistic, and I still am. I still would call myself an AI pessimist, just because I do think we're probably all going to die to robots in a few years. But like, let's
Potentially. But do you know what?
let's
Even the people
say
that
it.
are building the robots don't even know what's going to go on. Do you know what I mean? They don't even know what's happening. So I think
I
it's
also talked about the people building the robots. I always point towards like people saying about creativity dying. Like, what did ChatGPT and Claude do when it came to their marketing? They hired some really fucking good studios and had human-led videography, photography, motion, sound
yeah.
design. Right? Like, if they're doing it, can't mean the tools are that good yet.
Yeah, I think it's like there are, let's say, 6 or 7 people in the world right now who are in control, essentially in control of what happens to us all. And that's always kind of been the case to some degree, even when you look at empires or you look at, like, there are 6 very rich companies who are all giving money to each other, and they're taking a lot of money from other people to control this particular thing. Now, they have one agenda, and that is to keep their shareholders happy. So they have got to openly say, we are close to AGI. This
Yeah.
will replace human creativity. This will replace all human jobs, because otherwise, all the money that they've been given, their investors won't give them anymore. So they've got to say that. But I think, what, 1 trillion or something. I don't know what the valuation was of like OpenAI, but they're making like 100 billion a year. Like that math don't math. And that there's no longevity in that math. Because one day people will go, well, this hasn't worked out, has it? Do you know, we've given you a few years and you've probably gone backwards, which is probably what they have, to be fair.
Yeah.
Let's be
Yeah.
honest. Like, they
Been a
just
mass exodus, hasn't there?
yeah, but they've also just got rid of Sora. Like, they spent a
Yeah, I
lot of
saw that.
fucking
Yeah.
money on that. That's now gone.
Yeah.
So what a fucking waste of time and money that was. See you later. Oh, there you go. There's a couple of bill. See you later, mate. Like, that won't last forever. But like you, I mean, I've to go back to your point, like, I will always be a creative. I will always be designing. I do not give a flying fuck what happens with reference to tech, because I will always find a way to be that person. Now, I think what we all have to remember is that there's a reason why we started. The things around us, the tech, the economy, nature, environment, like, everything will always change around us. But what we are as human beings is, and the reason that we are still here as human beings, is because we are very good at adapting. When COVID happened and we were all told to wear masks and stay at home, we were like, no. Within 3 weeks, we were fine with it. Everybody was wearing masks. Most of the people were wearing masks. But what happens is we adapt and we evolve, because we survive. That's our job. Now, what's happening right now is we're going through another evolution. And whenever that happens, there is a lot of rebellion, stress, panic,
Mm.
uncertainty, until we find our feet with it again. And I think we're going to go through that exact same period with the tech within our industry, is that for the next year previous, this year, maybe 2 or 3 years, it's going to be really difficult to know what's right and wrong, because nobody knows what's going on and everybody's just trying a load of stuff. The ways it happened with like websites, and you think about all the companies that were built in like the early 2000s, like all of these massive companies, massive valuations, they're not even around anymore, because what happened was that space evolved so much that all the things that at the moment, like with AI, everybody's just like putting it in everything, spending a lot of money, but all the stuff that they're building won't be around in a few years' time, because everybody's trying to figure it out, like, where is it good? Where is it not good? Where can it help? Where does it slow us down? You see people like getting rid of a load of humans and hiring the humans back, and like, because everybody's trying to figure it out. Now, that creates a lot of uncertainty, but we will
Mm.
go through that exact same thing. And my point being, like, if you are a designer and if you are a creative person, that shouldn't have changed. Like, you still have the choice of whether you do stuff, use stuff, or whatever, but that shouldn't stop you from creating. Do you know what I mean? That shouldn't stop you from being a designer. If you want to use it, great. If you don't, great. But that shouldn't stop you from being the person that you want to be. And I think that's what is worrying me a little bit right now, is that it's almost become an excuse to stop. And that's
Yeah.
when I talk about testing. You are being tested right now. So you either complete the test or you don't. And I think it's as simple as that. But also, just like, I think what's really upsetting for me is how, like, how disconnected, like the creative. I grew up in a creative world that was, everybody was kind of happy with everybody doing different things in different ways. But now there's very much like, if you use AI, you're a twat. And if you don't use AI, it's like it's almost like red and blue. It's become very political. I understand the mindset behind like being very anti-AI. But I also wonder whether that will that change for that person when it's
Mm.
just become like, why are we still calling it AI? Because it's just going to be normal fairly soon. So, I would just love people to maybe just be a little bit more open to trying new things. I'm not saying they have to or they have to like it, but I think understanding it is probably an important thing. 'Cause I don't know if it's going to go away, but it won't
Yeah.
be the same. And I just don't want people's, I wouldn't say it's called ego, but it might be a little bit of ego get in the way of like potentially like future proofing themselves and their family and all the rest of it. I think there's got to be a bigger picture thinking.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that sentiment. I could chat about this with you all day, I feel like, James. It's been a really, really interesting
We'll do
conversation.
round
Just
two. Yeah,
I would love that. I would really love that. Definitely get you back on at some point. I'm also just curious, are you at DNAD this year? Are you headed in May?
no doubt.
Amazing. Well, I'll get to see you. We can chat some more there.
I'd love that.
I really, 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 really enjoyed this. Like really, really good conversation. I knew it was going to be a fun one, and yeah, you great person to chat with. Before you shoot, I need to get a little peace pose for the perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, James. It's been a really, really cool conversation, and yeah, I look forward to picking it up in it's May, right? Isn't it?
I
DNAD.
think so, brother. I think so.
Wicked.
Yeah,
So
I'll
glad
see
I'll
you
see you
there.
there.
Yeah.